Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We do believe that it is associated to a domestic incident.
A child is dead, a woman stabbed. A community copes with tragedy in Surrey. Also,
people on the ground have enormous challenges, unimaginable.
I don't think it's reached the houses yet, but it looks like it's getting pretty close.
Burning out of control. Help arrives to give BC's wildfire crew some relief. And
it's just not worth the fight.
This is absolute insanity.
Confrontations and pressure. Why some BC businesses are dropping the mask policy.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with some news that we need to warn you about. A disturbing story out of Surrey. A 5-year-old has died after being left in a house allegedly set on fire. A woman was stabbed but managed to get out and call 911, and the suspect left the scene. Here's Susanna De Silva with our top story.
The house was a ball of flames before many neighbors realized what was happening.
We ran out to the front and fully involved the back of the house. It was coming through the roof, and sorry, I get a little emotional with it, finding out that there's some deaths. Anyway, so my friend and I ran to the front door. It was open, which is unusual. We yelled in, but it was full of smoke and fire. We didn't hear anything.
Police say a woman who had been stabbed managed to run from the home before the fire was set and call 911, but a 5-year-old was left behind. The suspect in the stabbing and fire then took off, according to police. RCMP found the suspect's car later on the Portman Bridge. Investigators believe the man is now dead, and they are searching the river.
They were a quiet family, but there was a lot of screaming and yelling sometimes, right? And it was sad. And he was a big man, she was a little woman.
Neighbors say the family had lived here for a couple of years and had recently renovated their home, including new landscaping and fencing.
I'm shocked for me, nice people, nice to talk, to not too much talk for a nice life. The nice for nice neighbors.
Their next-door neighbors say sometimes they heard him yelling on the phone, but had no indications there were problems.
Never see why we fight the difference, and I don't know why. But inside they also never see fights.
We know that today's tragic news is going to have an impact on the community. It has had an impact on the first responders who attended. It's very sad news, and we are urging anyone who may be struggling with this news today to reach out for support or to consider contacting a healthcare provider.
And everyone in the neighborhood says they will miss seeing the little boy who was friendly to everyone.
Very nice. Sometimes just in the bedroom outside of the window, see me in and outside. He talking a punch the weeds up here.
And the little guy was so cute. He waved every time he came in out of the cul-de-sac, and it was just sad. It's just a sad situation. So.
That's the CBC's Susanna De Silva reporting tonight. Now, we know these kinds of stories can be triggering, so if you need some support in the Vancouver Coastal Health Region, the crisis line can be reached at 604-872-3311. You can find the Fraser Health Crisis Line at 604-951-8855, and the BC-wide mental health support line is on your screen. No area code needed there. More than 200 wildfires are burning across BC, and survivors of the Lytton wildfire finally have a firm idea of when they can return to see firsthand what is left of their town and their homes. As Katie Nicholson explains, calls to find out how the blaze started are growing louder.
All of the brush has been removed out. All of the trees have been spaced out.
Alfred Higginbottom removed excess trees and brush from this area for the Shkupa Band 3 years ago.
So you can imagine a fire will get in here and go whoosh, and it'll catch all of these ones and it'll be blowing sparks.
It needs to be done again, and soon. It's all part of the band's plan to stop or at least slow down forest fires. So has he seen the same kind of thinning out and brush removal along rail lines?
I haven't seen it.
Speculation runs high that the Lytton fire was sparked up by a train. This one was spotted burning 45 kilometers south of the village that afternoon. CN does have a program to remove any vegetation that may pose a safety hazard, but the Intlakapam Tribal Council says it hasn't been doing enough of it.
No, they have not. And again, I know that our communities have brought this forward on numerous occasions over many years, and we're not taken seriously.
As long as the cause of the fatal Lytton fire remains under investigation, the council wants trains to stop running through the area. When asked if blockades were a possibility, this is what it said.
I want everybody to know that we believe that people's lives are meaningful, and I'll take whatever steps necessary in order to have them be safe.
The Lytton fire is still burning. Today, more reinforcements arrived. More tents popping up at this firefighter camp. But for Shkupa band members whose homes neighbor the devastated town, fear they could be next, especially given the brutally dry conditions. How quickly can something move across here, given the conditions we have right here?
How quickly?
Yeah.
Faster than you could run.
Perhaps some relief for Higginbottom. This firefighter camp is growing. 40 firefighters coming in from New Brunswick specifically to fight the Lytton fire. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Boston Bar.
And tonight we're hearing from BC's Premier, who has flown over some of the hardest hit areas of this week's wildfires. Tanya Fletcher is live with the latest on that. Tanya, what are we hearing from John Horgan?
Well, the Premier provided an update from Kamloops after a flyover of the aftermath with his Public Safety Minister, Forest Minister, and local BC Liberal MLA Jackie Taggart.
It was a moving experience, I think, for all four of us to fly over Lytton and to see the devastation there, the damage of a once vibrant community at the coming together of the Fraser and the Thompson, and to see literally nothing left. On the other side of the river, however, there was hope. On the west side, there were homes and farms and other activity.
So after their aerial tour, they touched down in Lillooet to talk to the crews on the ground there. And some of those firefighters had actually lost their own homes in the Lytton fire. Horgan says it was inspiring to witness the resiliency of these personnel fighting to save other communities while still mourning the loss of their own at the same time. Officials were once again asked why a provincial state of emergency still hasn't been declared due to the ongoing threat of the forest fire activity. The Public Safety Minister repeated that this is not a political decision, but rather one that's made at the advisement of agencies like the BC Wildfire Service. He says when they say it's time to put a state of emergency into place, the province will put one into place.
Okay, so Tanya, help from other provinces was supposed to arrive yesterday. That was delayed because of a mechanical issue. We know Katie just mentioned some crews going to Lytton. Has that extra help touched down now?
Yes, late this afternoon, out-of-province firefighters touched down in Abbotsford. Take a look. These crew members are from Quebec and New Brunswick in particular. We're told approximately 45 personnel from each of those two provinces has arrived in BC to this point. They'll undergo COVID testing before being deployed into the field, and they say they're eager to hit the front lines to help.
I recently moved to Quebec. I used to work for BC Wildfire Service, so it's very exciting and really an honor and whatnot to be back home to be able to help out my old agency and colleagues with this current situation. Watching this situation unfold across the country was really hard, so it's nice to be able to come out and help.
So he will join the 2,700 men and women currently fighting the fires in BC right now. The Canadian Army has also set up a base in Edmonton to help the firefights across the West. More than 175 planes and helicopters have joined the aerial fight against the fires in our province. Anita?
Tanya Fletcher live tonight. Thanks, Tanya. And the record-smashing heat has left Greater Victoria's urban parks tinder dry. Now officials are warning even city dwellers need a wildfire plan.
Need to be prepared for wildfires. You know, not only having an evacuation plan for you and your family to get out of your property should there be a fire, but also taking steps to protect your home and your property from fire and your neighbors, and be aware.
Despite the danger, smokers have been responsible for several small fires in Saanich in the past few days. Fire crews are encouraging people to take measures to reduce their risk. That includes keeping grass cut low, clearing gutters of dry debris, and keeping combustibles away from your house. All right, let's bring in Amy Bell now with a look at the forecast. Amy, any relief in sight for crews?
No, unfortunately not. And as you can see from the fire danger rating, we are already in that high danger mode for much of the province. And we've still got extreme heat expected for the next several days. And unfortunately, a risk of quite a few thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon in the southeastern parts of the province. So definitely not an ideal situation at all. As you can see, this is well above what we typically would have this time of year, just tinder dry, as you said. Thankfully, today it was a very settled day. We had a couple of earlier lightning strikes, and then everything has moved east, and then we're just awaiting this next system. So we still have the heat. We just didn't have those lightning strikes, which was obviously very good news. But tomorrow afternoon is what we're going to keep an eye out for, especially for, as I mentioned, the southeastern parts of the province. It will be quite active, unfortunately, around Kamloops. And we have extreme heat warnings as well for areas in the Okanagan Valley, the West Kootenays, the North and South Thompson. So yes, certainly we are not out of the woods. And unfortunately, we will actually see the heat increasing across much of the province once we have this brief cool down tomorrow, and then get another wave of high pressure moving in to push those temperatures higher. Taking a look at us locally, tomorrow we will see a slightly cooler day, and then actually overnight into Thursday morning, we have a very slight chance of some low cloud and some drizzle. Very much not a kind of a non-event in terms of precipitation. And then we're back to the sunshine on Thursday, and we get back to the warmer temperatures on Friday and for the weekend.
Okay, thanks, Amy. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet.
2 people have been arrested after the seizure of drugs estimated to be worth more than $4 million. Vancouver police say it is linked to a major gang organization.
The drug unit did execute the warrants on the stash houses, and it's a significant quantity of drugs. And in fact, the drugs you see behind me today are one of the largest seizures we've had in VPD in quite some time.
Officers searched 2 condo buildings in downtown Vancouver, allegedly operated by a high-profile organized crime group. The condos stashed bulk drugs, including 13 kilograms of fentanyl, 11 kilograms of crystal meth, 8 kilograms of benzodiazepine, and 5 kilograms of cocaine. They also seized cash and equipment. Police say the operation was using a taxi to deliver the substances. A 52-year-old man from Burnaby and a 21-year-old man from Vancouver have been arrested. We have 46 new COVID-19 cases in BC today and no new deaths as the rolling average increases for the first time in 41 days. 87 people are in hospital, 22 in intensive care. 37% of eligible British Columbians are now fully vaccinated. And in a bid to get that vaccination rate up even more, Fraser Health set up a clinic at Crescent Beach today. It's open to anyone 12 and older who hasn't been immunized against COVID-19 yet. If you qualify for your second dose and the clinic has capacity, your name will be added to a virtual wait list. There will be a similar clinic at Cultus Lake this Friday. Well, it seems British Columbians are now dealing with a patchwork of mask rules as businesses try to adjust to the province lifting its mask mandate. As Isabel Regam tells us, some shops have given up and say it's just not worth the fight.
I am going to change it and take out the mandatory and put highly recommended.
Barb White is shifting her store's mask requirement to a request. It's a step she didn't want to take, but says she had to ease mounting pressure on staff.
With some of the ones that don't want to wear masks, they're pretty aggressive. Without the backup of a mandatory, it's just not worth the fight.
Staff here have reported a spike in conflict after BC lifted its mask mandate July 1st, no longer making it mandatory.
We no longer need to have orders and directives in place, and we can remove those and replace them with the guidance.
Since then, businesses have put their own guidelines in place.
Obviously, I'm not wearing a mask, so I've been fully vaccinated, so I have no problem with anybody that comes in here.
Brooke Floyd is leaving it up to each of her staff to make the call while they're on shift.
I left a note for them saying, you know, it's up to you to decide whether you would like them to wear the mask.
At this pizza shop, you can come with or without one.
For now, like we don't force them to wearing masks.
Customers have mixed reactions to the patchwork of rules.
The fact that we're rolling out people not wearing masks, it's just kind of uncomfortable.
To each their own, you know what I mean? I feel people have been wearing masks and social distancing for so long that, you know, now people are going to jump at the opportunity.
If I had a choice of other places to go to, I'd probably choose a place that did have everyone wearing masks indoors.
The ability to transmit the virus after 2 doses of vaccine is greatly reduced.
Dr. Narang says when it comes to masks, he urges people assess their individual risk and comfort.
Knowing that some businesses will have different realities internally that they have to deal with. So if a business says we would rather you have a mask on, then I think it's best to avoid confrontation, wear the mask.
While White has concerns about removing the requirement, she hopes it will make for a safer work environment for her staff. Isabel Regam, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, if you're looking for some help with your bike ride, the BC government wants to remind everyone that e-bikes are exempt from PST.
We know that people accessing bicycles is a way to get out of your car. It's good for your exercise, good for your health. It's also good for the environment, and it's also an affordability piece.
Power-assisted bikes can help riders with mobility issues get back on 2 wheels. New buyers can expect to save around $150 without the PST on that price tag. A new e-bike runs about $2,000, or roughly the price of a year's auto insurance.
As we face the global challenge of transitioning away from fossil fuels, renewable hydrogen will be a critical part of our achieving clean energy and climate goals.
As part of the drive for green and renewable energy, BC is releasing a hydrogen strategy. The plan includes ramping up renewable production and converting heavy trucking to hydrogen. The province is committing $10 million over 3 years, with goals going into the 2030s. We're continuing to share some of the Indigenous languages spoken across Vancouver Island and southwestern BC, and the people working hard to revitalize them. A member of the Qualicum First Nation is sharing a phrase he thinks we should know. Have a listen.
Night Squale. My name is Jesse Ricalma from the Qualicum First Nation, and we're working on a project right now within our community to revitalize the Puntlich language. And the phrase I want to share with you guys today is Wailup alats och quanamet. Wailup alats och quanamet. And it translates as let us go and help. And so we're working on this project here within our community to revitalize a language that's been listed as, in some cases, as extinct, in other cases as a sleeping language. And so each little bit that we learn and we share and we build connections between each of our different phrases amongst the different Salish languages sort of helps us rebuild and reconstruct and put together the pieces of the puzzle that our ancestors had left for us. And so Wailup alats och quanamet is a way of encourage everyone, let us go help. Let us go and help. Wailup alats och quanamet. And so it's a way of getting out and helping in whatever way we can, because this language work is really important work, but it also requires the hands of everyone who can help in order to keep this project alive. So, hoi chapka, siyam na squalmu.
Thank you for sharing that. And a reminder, you can watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. That's the free app where you can also find other CBC programs. CBC Vancouver also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Well, she's set to become Canada's first Indigenous Governor General. the challenges Mary Simon is facing. Next. Okay, you may have seen some pictures online this weekend of a rather unusual animal at a dog park in Nova Scotia, but this was no dog. It was a 600-pound gray seal. Exactly how the animal got there, well, Colleen Jones set out to try and solve the mystery.
It was utter bizarreness, if that's even a word.
Meet Rodney Habib.
The craziest thing I've ever witnessed in my life. Literally walking.
He got the surprise of a lifetime Saturday morning out walking his dog at Shuby Park when this happened.
There's no way in the world you could ever convince me in a million years what I was about to see when I came around this corner. Holy moly. I couldn't believe it, but literally right here, right in front of those cars, that gray car right there, there is a 300-pound seal in distress. The most bizarre thing I've ever seen in all of my life.
No one could believe it. One of the weirdest calls Halifax police received, the fire department, DFO. Hope Swinimer got a 7 a.m. call at Hope for Wildlife.
Received a call around 7 a.m. that a sea lion was in Shuby Park, so I immediately knew it was probably a very large seal because in the North Atlantic we don't have sea lions.
Marine Animal Response Society was quick on the scene. Meanwhile, the seal locals have nicknamed Shuby was on the move.
The gray seal then made his way from the parking lot into this center path, and he got about 50 feet to where they were able to stop him from not going any further in and harming himself.
Once they realized it was so heavy, they decided that we're going to need drugs, we're going to need a doctor, we're going to need a tranquilizing gun. So my end was scurrying around trying to get the tranquilizer gun, get a veterinarian that could go, and to get the right dosing.
Once tranquilized, Shuby was maneuvered onto the makeshift seal stretcher and soon off to Eastern Passage and back into open water. But the Great Seal mystery isn't quite over.
There's no oceans in sight. How does a 300-plus pound seal end up into a parking lot?
Rodney Habib's first thought?
This was a practical joke. I literally thought somebody got super drunk on the weekend, brought the seal up and thought it'd be a great practical joke.
Not a prank, no one was drunk, but it is a mystery to unlock in a place full of locks.
I mean, I think it must have come in through the locks.
That seal would have had to cross a series of locks to make his way up here.
Well, the Shuby Canal locks could have been the seal's route. Vince Landry, out walking along the locks, thinks that's highly unlikely.
Through the Shubenacadie River from the Bay of Fundy.
That's your theory?
Because I don't think it would have climbed the ladders this way and gotten through Sullivan's Pond.
So who knows how the curious seal made its way here, but no one who saw what they saw can unsee it.
We get so many weird cases, but this tops the list of one that I will certainly remember for a long time.
Shuby, one lucky and very adventurous seal. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Dartmouth.
Adventurous, no doubt. Okay, we'll be back in a few moments with more local and national news, so stick with us. Well, it's a historic appointment. For the first time, an Indigenous person has been named the next Governor General of Canada. It comes after a major fallout over the last Governor General, which led to the resignation of Julie Payette. Ashley Burke broke the story about Payette's troubled tenure, and she has more on what's ahead for the next occupant of Rideau Hall.
A historic appointment in the wake of a historic resignation.
I cannot think of a better person to meet the moment.
I can confidently say that my appointment is a historic and inspirational moment for Canada.
Mary Simon, an Inuk leader and former Canadian diplomat, selected as the first Indigenous Queen's representative to Canada during a critical time.
Governor General of Canada.
Taking office with a different kind of bilingualism, Inuktitut and English.
I was denied the chance to learn French during my time in the federal government day schools.
She has a unique ability to talk about a lived experience, to talk about the issues that she has worked on in her career.
That selection a step forward, only happening because of the Prime Minister's past failure. To vet the previous Governor General Julie Payette, who resigned in disgrace over reports of harassment, leaving behind a shattered workplace culture that Simon will need to restore at Rideau Hall.
As Governor General, I am fully committed to setting and maintaining the highest possible standard of work and ethic in all aspects of my duties.
She's stepping into, a situation that very much parallels the Crown-Indigenous relationship in Canada in general. A relationship that has been abusive and has been neglected and toxic.
As Canada walks the path of reconciliation, having an Indigenous leader in the highest constitutional office in the country is a big step forward on that path. The government hopes to have an installation ceremony for Simon within the next 6 weeks. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
A Saskatchewan First Nation is retaking control of children in care for the first time since 1951. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who visited Cowessess First Nation today for the transfer, called this a historic moment.
The work of reconciliation won't transform Indigenous communities alone and Indigenous people in Canada alone. The work of reconciliation must and will transform all of Canada and all Canadians. That's the work we have to do together.
It is the first time control of Child and Family Services is going back to a First Nation under a federal legislation which was passed in 2019. Last month, the Cowessess First Nation announced the discovery of 751 unmarked graves near a former residential school. The Prime Minister says he plans to visit the site to pay his respects. Well, over the last year, hate-related incidents in Vancouver have doubled. Would you know what to do if you witness this type of crime taking place? Well, 2 women working to end racial violence reflect on the power bystanders have to support victims. Have a look.
I remember there was a young guy sitting on his own with his headphones, with his laptop. There was a younger couple. There was like a younger woman as well. Everybody was just kind of like looking, but like minding their own business. And that's when he all of a sudden took his other hand and smacked me across the face. My name is Noor Fidel. I'm a 22-year-old Canadian Muslim, born and raised. On December 4th, 2017, I was the victim of a hate crime.
Good evening. A 46-year-old man has been arrested and charged after what police are calling a hate-motivated attack on a woman on the Canada line.
He tried to grab my head and force it against his crotch, and I looked at the passenger sitting next to me, and everyone was just looking. I think what really hurt me the most was not seeing anyone react or do anything.
Well, most people, if they've seen an incident and they didn't intervene, most people have said that they feel really bad about that. They don't feel good about that. Sometimes it's not the will of the people that they don't want to intervene. It's just that sometimes they just don't know how. I'm Ninu Kang. I lead workshops on supporting individuals on how to interrupt when they see various forms of violence through a program called Be More Than a Bystander. Be More Than a Bystander program is really about seeing something and feeling empowered to intervene and act, whether it's non-verbally or verbally, and making sure that the victim in that incident is feeling supported.
I think the biggest thing was I was so scared of being alone, and even when the attack was happening, like that's what I was telling myself in my head was, I'm gonna die, and everybody here is gonna see it, and nobody's gonna react.
It's really, really important to focus on the person that's being harmed, and that's where you really need to step in and focus less on the person that's causing the harm, because you're not going to change their behavior in that moment. So really stay focused on providing support to the person that's being harmed.
A Good Samaritan, Jake Taylor, saw the incident unfolding and stepped in.
Support comes in so many different ways. I think just making eye contact with the person being harmed is a form of support. support, stepping in closer to the incident just to interrupt it, where the person feels like someone's next to them is a form of support. Staying with them, knowing that they've experienced trauma in that incident, staying calm and helping them.
Jake was just next to me trying to calm me down, and I think what really saved me from just feeling much worse was just knowing that he was there in support. To be honest, I just remember going home and I was ready to end my life. Wasn't the first experience I had, and I wanted to. And I decided instead, I woke up the next morning and I told myself, no, you're not going to stay quiet about this.
So being more than a bystander means that you are taking a stand that this behavior is not accepted, and I will not be part of this form of behavior perpetrated on anybody in society.
If there's anything that I can say to folks out there, it's, you don't need to be this superhero wearing this cape, interfering and putting yourself right in the middle. You can easily just, even if it's not in the moment, find a way to connect afterwards, or just sit next to the individual, or be nearby, Having that support is enough for when they look back at it, they go, I wasn't alone in this.
CBC News has confirmed the identity of the first known Canadian victim in that deadly tower collapse in Surfside, Florida. Ingrid Ainsworth is among the dead in that disaster. It shocked the world nearly 2 weeks ago. As Katie Simpson reports, at least 36 people were killed and 3 more Canadians are missing.
A huge crowd gathered in the street to mark the start of a solemn funeral procession, a chance to say goodbye and pay respects to 2 of the Surfside condo collapse victims, one of them a Canadian. Sources confirm 66-year-old Ingrid Ainsworth, who went by Edie, has been identified as the Canadian who died. Her body was found in the rubble on July 5th, as was that of her husband, Svi, who was originally from Australia.
It's like a terrible nightmare. Just can't wake up.
The Ainsworths attended a small synagogue near the collapse site. Their rabbi says he knew Svi better than Edie.
Well, Svi was a very easygoing fellow, very nice to talk to, great sense of humor, very chatty.
In a Mother's Day blog post from 2020, obtained by the Miami Herald, the couple's daughter, one of their 7 kids, wrote a tribute to Edie. Every person she encountered ever in life became her friend. Everyone was treated as equals, she wrote. The guy at the laundromat, the guy working at the fruit market, the outcast, the misunderstood, the popular, the unpopular. The Ainsworth family had recently celebrated the birth of a new grandchild. They reportedly moved to Florida about 4 years ago to be closer to family after spending nearly 2 decades in Australia.
I ask all of you around the world who are continuing to follow this story to please keep these victims and these families in your hearts and prayers.
Video from first responders showing the debris pile acts as a sobering reminder of the scale of this challenge. It's a rescue effort that had to pause for 2 hours today because of lightning and wind. Conditions that may worsen as the outer bands of Hurricane Elsa draw closer. There are still 3 Canadians from 2 different families among the missing. Canadian officials are on the ground trying to get them what information and support they can. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Along with wildfire danger comes another risk, significant risk really, smoke. Coming up, we tackle the challenges that smoky skies bring to health.
If you picked up a couple of things at a grocery store in Sherbrooke, Quebec, Peterborough, Ontario, or Kamloops, BC today, you probably had a bit of a surprise. Grocery stores in those cities began a pilot project today, a project that will test the conversion of food stores to the metric system. Colin Hoth did some comparison shopping in Kamloops.
Tomatoes on special at $1.30. T-bone steaks recommended at $7.69. BC salmon steaks advertised at $15.41. A store gone crazy? No, just gone metric. Those were the kind of prices by the kilogram that confronted mystified shoppers in Kamloops today. The kilo, in case you haven't heard, is 2.2 pounds. Scale companies are working around the clock converting their equipment. So even if the advertised price seems high, the price of your steak or tomato really comes out the same in the end. 200 grocery store workers from Kamloops have already been converted to thinking metric at special evening courses. All that remains is to convert the consumer. The Federal Metric Commission will be monitoring public reaction during these pilot projects.
I tell you, everybody's changing, so I have no objections to metric. None whatsoever. What choice do I have? I don't have any choice, do I?
What do you think about the Canada's decision to go metric?
I think it should have been put to the people, personally. That's my opinion.
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen, I guess. So we just got to get used to it.
The Consumers Association has its watchdogs out as well, but reports that indications to date are that shoppers have little to fear from the onward march of the gram and the kilo.
There's always the danger of rip-offs, but we hope that people who think that there are rip-offs will get in touch with us.
Can the consumer, in fact, do much to protect himself from that sort of thing?
With prices going up so rapidly, it's sometimes difficult to tell, but you have to know your prices to guard against that, and support organizations that are like ours that are monitoring it.
What's happening today in Kamloops and in Sherbrooke and Peterborough merely foreshadows what's in store for us all as the 2-year metric phase-in program is launched across the country January the 1st next year. Colin Holt, CBC News, Kamloops.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Today's tragic news is going to have an impact on the community. It has had an impact on the first responders who attended. It's very sad news, and we are urging anyone who may be struggling with this news today to reach out for support.
Yes, a warning. This story is disturbing. A 5-year-old has died after a family member allegedly set fire to a home in Surrey. RCMP were called to the house in Guildford to help a woman who had been stabbed. The 42-year-old woman escaped and phoned police, but her child was left inside. The suspect's car was later found on the Portman Bridge, and it is believed he is now dead.
With some of the ones that don't want to wear masks, they're pretty aggressive.
As mask wearing becomes optional, stores and customers are adapting to all the mixed policies. Some businesses have decided to drop the mask requirement altogether, saying it's not worth the fight as customers complain and put the pressure on. And people from Lytton will be able to return on Friday to the town site to survey the damage after fire ripped through. Residents had been kept away because of concerns that toxic elements and nearby fire posed a safety risk. Meanwhile, help has arrived in BC from out of province, a relief to crews here who have been working nonstop to battle the more than 200 wildfires currently burning. And many evacuees have gone to Kamloops, at the very residential school where hundreds of unmarked graves were found just weeks ago. As Carolyn Dunn explains, what has been a source of so much horror is for the moment a scene of hope.
Amongst a mountain of donations, there is even more need.
We come from a really big family.
Marlene Charlie and Eric Pickard from Lytton lost everything except whatever was clean in a laundry basket and one picture.
I think about what we lost and how fast it was coming, and I know when we got to the tracks trying to come out of the reserve, I happened to look back and the fire was already like just coming towards us.
Yeah.
So we had to just keep driving.
This is wonderful.
Yeah,
this is great. We just can't believe all the stuff that they've gotten, the gas cards and clothes and food, and you know, they support us emotionally too.
That is remarkable given where the evacuation center is, the old Kamloops Indian Residential School, where the unmarked graves of 251 children were discovered just over a month ago. Today, it is set up to help any evacuee who needs it.
And we wanted to make sure they had a place to come to and feel welcomed and supported.
They have all the food.
Chief Roseanne Casimir says the care her community has received is giving them the strength to give back.
You know, for us, you know, we just want to embrace them because we know what it's like to be hurting. And we just want to ensure that, you know, we continue supporting one another. That's something that we've always done as Kamloops First Nations.
So volunteers are working to keep people fed, and the gym doubles as a cooling center to escape the punishing heat and smoke that fills the air. All 4 of Laura Michelle's grandparents attended this school. Michelle felt the need to come volunteer.
So to actually see this space being used for such a positive purpose, it's amazing to see. And that in itself is healing.
Few places need healing more than this. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Kamloops.
Wildfires in BC have already burned nearly 900 square kilometers of land so far this season. Now, as Kate Kyle reports, researchers are wondering about the long-term health effects from all the smoke for people who live nearby.
There are more than 200 wildfires burning across British Columbia right now. And while the increase in frequency of wildfires around the world has been in part attributed to climate change, the impacts go far beyond environmental.
The climate crisis is a health crisis. The smoke from wildfires can lead to the development of respiratory conditions like asthma exacerbations.
The Global Climate Health Alliance says the long-term health impacts of wildfire smoke on people are less known. A new report looked at case studies from Canada, Australia, and Brazil.
Wildfires are becoming more extreme. They're lasting longer. It's really important to understand that, dial that in, and make the preparations to respond accordingly.
One Canadian study on Yellowknife fires in 2014 found asthma cases doubled during the fires. So did prescriptions for breathing medicine. People who were used to spending time outside reported mental health impacts from isolation. The hospital closed its operating room for a few days because of wildfire smoke.
We ended up having 2.5 months really of off and on wildfire smoke here in Yellowknife. It felt bad.
Dr. Courtney Howard says current public health advice for wildfires are based on much shorter timelines.
Public health advice is generally to stay inside when the windows are closed with a smoky episode, but we don't often pair that with the advice to get outside the minute the air is clear when you can during smoky episodes. And so that's going to require some adjustments, a little bit like what we've made for COVID.
Among the recommendations, more research on the impacts of wildfire smoke on health, helping communities and public health agencies prepare for more fires. And global leaders need to take urgent action to address climate change. Kate Kyle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Coming up, a gay BC South Asian is sharing his story in hopes of helping others come out. And at 6:42, you're looking at a live shot at the Port of Vancouver facing the North Shore. A bit of unsettled weather coming our way. Could it bring a bit of rain? Well, Amy will break down the chances next.
I have 10 minutes. Are you going to be okay? Put my shoes on.
It's taking something that is widely known and just like totally going like this.
In the early years, the company was blackballed because of the gay element.
I begged off my first pair of pointe shoes and only whipped out in secrecy in the empty studio for fear of being caught.
I kind of wanted a little girl, but then I guess by default I got a lot of the feminine qualities.
I can be myself. I can wear tutus, why not? Those little things change the world.
We're all so different, we're so international, we're all from different backgrounds, but the audience senses it. We are a family. So when that curtain goes up, it's just electric.
I love the sound of applause. I live for the applause.
The funniest dudes, the craziest, the most radical are always going to be in the dish pit. It's like this community of rejects.
The dishwasher, it can get pretty intense.
It's a job that'll break you if you can't handle it.
Behind back, I got my bachelor's degree in philosophy, and I chose dishwashing because I have done entry-level work most of my life. I hope in 5 years that some of my student debt is paid off. That's about the only goal I have.
J'aime rendre service pour une raison. Faut que je bouge. Si je bouge pas, c'est pas bon.
We flew off the handle for a while. We got a little crazy. My buddy was telling me, if you stay off cocaine, I can hook you up maybe with a job at this restaurant, washing dishes.
I see a future in the kitchen for me.
When your backyard is burning, is anywhere safe? I'm Adrienne Lamb, the host of a new podcast, World on Fire. Join us on the front lines of wildfires burning around the world. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, coming out to a family is a meaningful milestone for many LGBTQ people, but often it's not an easy conversation. One BC South Asian man is turning the lens on his layered identity and what it has meant to tell his family he's gay. As Benit Brach reports, this emerging documentarian is now sharing other stories.
It was difficult. It's hard to live a double life. It's hard to live a double life, you know what I mean, Mom?
For Alex Sunga, growing up as a gay South Asian meant wrestling his true identity with fears of rejection. While his mother accepts his sexuality, Sunga's father struggles to understand him.
You know, my dad said to me, I love you as a son, but I don't approve of your lifestyle. And I understand that. Because it took me many years of internalized homophobia and not liking myself for being gay to accept myself.
Sunga's past inspired him to produce a documentary with his support group, Shade Vancouver. It unpacks the experiences of queer South Asians in Metro Vancouver. One of them is Jagandeep Nagra. Fearing rejection, she and her gay brother hid their sexualities from their parents for several years.
That was really scary, finding out that my brother's also gay, because I had been struggling for so long. And when I found out he was, like, I feel like my whole world just crumbled, because how can two people in the same family be gay? How are we going to have this conversation with my family?
However, to her surprise, coming out was awarded with the tightest hug.
Like, imagine like decades of fear and worry, all of a sudden all that fear vanishes and you realize it's going to be okay.
Sunga and Nagra have been accepted, but they understand that many queer folks fear or face family rejection. Sunga says this is because families lack conversation and don't have enough support resources.
There's not a lot of education and information in the community for South Asian families and parents.
In the 1990s, when Sunga's mother initially tried to understand his sexuality, she searched up the literal meaning in a dictionary.
To me was the homo milk, and the gay was the happy person. So that's all. See how ignorance and lack of knowledge I have.
Now she hopes to empower parents to understand their children and seek support.
Yeah, from my heart that it's okay to cry, it's okay to wonder, it's okay to feel a little bit less than all others around you. But then you come to the point that I accept who I am, I accept my child.
The three of them hope to prompt new conversations in the South Asian community.
This is rosemary, and this is thyme.
I want to give hope to the younger generation. I want to give hope to the parents. I want people to know that it does get better because, you know, I love myself now. I have so much self-love.
Their documentary is being recognized as breaking the silence for the LGBTQ+ South Asian community. For now, it's being submitted to over 60 film festivals from Vancouver, Toronto to India. It'll be available for public viewing this fall on National Coming Out Day.
Happy Pride Month!
Happy Pride, happy Pride. Wish you all the best.
Beneat Praich, CBC News, Delta.
Joanna Wagstaff is off this week. Amy Bell is here. Amy, I know the hot temperatures are going to continue. We always wish for this, but it's not great news, is it really?
I know. It's careful what you wish for. We were all worried about January, and look what happened. Yes, we are still dealing with extreme heat for many areas and have heat warnings for the Fraser Canyon still, for the North and South Thompson, Okanagan Valley, the West Kootenays. So certainly not ideal where we're dealing with this intense and extreme wildfire risk. So very dry across the province. We did see a couple of areas, a few little pockets early this morning, potential lightning strikes. I'm really concerned though for tomorrow. We've got a system coming in and that will bring more widespread chance of some precipitation, yes, but also that risk of lightning strikes. And that'll be mainly a concern in the southeast pocket of the province. Earlier it was up north that we were seeing those lightning strikes where it is extremely dry. So hopefully things will be okay, but certainly the next 24 hours could be a bit interesting dealing with that heat as well. We could actually see, not rain, I think that was overselling it in the promo, but we could see some drizzle tomorrow night, overnight into very early Thursday morning. We'll have some cloud coming in, thickening up and coming down low enough that we could see a bit of drizzle, but really it'll be fairly negligible in terms of precipitation. And then we get right back into the sunshine and the heat. So definitely keeping an eye on things. Tomorrow will be the very unsettled day over much of the province though. So definitely cause for concern. As you can see, we do have some showers expected for Comox and for Nanaimo, and that will be more in the afternoon. We'll see the system gradually arriving throughout the day. 25 with a mix of sun and cloud though in Victoria, so a gorgeous day over on that side of the island. Potential for some thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon up near Whistler. And staying fairly decent out in the Fraser Valley for tomorrow. We do have a chance, though, of things getting a bit warmer over the next several days. So that's what we're going to keep an eye on here locally. We do have some clouds for Prince Rupert tomorrow. And then inland sections of the coast, we do have a heat warning for areas around Smithers and Terrace. Dees Lake, 25, Prince George at 29. And then, yes, we're going to watch sort of Kelowna, Kamloops, Cranbrook, all dealing with very unsettled temperatures or unsettled conditions tomorrow. And that's when we could see those thunderstorms. Taking a look at our 5-day forecast, as I mentioned, just that chance of drizzle tomorrow night, and then we get back into the sunshine and gradually start to warm up as we head into the weekend. We're looking at 30 degrees inland by Saturday and probably Sunday too.
That is hot.
That is indeed.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Well, it's war over whiskey. Why a Victoria distillery has the Scots up in arms. Next.
When stay-at-home orders dictate what you can and can't do, every part of your routine is interrupted, from going to work to getting your hair done.
You don't know what's going to happen next, how long it's going to take to open.
When you work in hair, that's especially true.
How your clients are going to manage certain styles that they can't even do on their own. Especially like my black clientele who have more like textured, kinky hair. I found that they were really overwhelmed with having to deal with their own hair for the first time. Some kind of have experience dabbling in their hair, But other clients, they completely they just leave it to the salon.
For many, quarantine was a crash course in DIY hair care.
So having to take over that themselves had led to many things. People cutting off their hair, people randomly coloring their hair, people resulting to wigs.
To meet the demand, Winsome Holder started a whole new business making wigs.
Because they're like, I don't know what to do to my real hair. Let me just put on this wig. It's like literally like grab and go and shake.
I feel like a giddy little child sitting in the chair again. The pandemic has been hard on my hair. And I was pregnant too, so my hair changed a lot during the pregnancy, and then being in the pandemic, it's been really hard. Like, I was sitting at home watching videos of people dyeing their hair themselves and doing really risky things. So I think it'll force people it has forced people to learn more about things that they can do at home themselves.
The hair care journey of the last year and a half also came with lessons in self-care.
Other people also did find certain hair cares, and they learned their hair more because they were in it more.
Winsome Holder throws an annual hair show called The World of Hair, showcasing stylists who specialize in multicultural, multi-textured hair. And she thinks the pandemic is going to influence the artistry.
I honestly expect to see more creativity, just an energy that's just lit under hairstylists. I see more like fantasy hairstyles. So color, short bobs, natural intrinsic braids. There's just a hunger of wanting to do hair more, and not just salon hairstyling, but out of the box hairstyling. Beads, certain clips, certain headbands. So stuff that are accessorized with the hairstyling.
As one hair journey ends, a new, exciting one begins.
Call your stylist.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Vancouver Queer Film Festival is back. Enjoy the best in independent queer cinema along with workshops, artist panels, Q&As, and more. Learn more at queerfilmfestival.ca. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox and keep connected with us.
An award-winning Victoria distillery is in a trademark battle.
Yes, Macaloni's Caledonian whiskey doesn't market itself as Scotch. That word is a geographically protected designation. But the Scotch Whisky Association is suing, accusing it of deceptive branding.
Katie Nicholson looks at the ferment.
We like it to be nice and lumpy because it burns easier.
From the peat to the 70-proof alcohol.
It's clear like water.
Macaloni's Caledonian whiskey is fully Canadian. It even says so on the label.
We've made it prominent in the gold on the bottle.
Even so, it's run afoul of the Scotch Whisky Association, which claims the Victoria Distillery's product is misleading consumers, making them think this is Scotch whiskey from Scotland, a protected geographical trademark, like champagne from France. But the distillery doesn't use the word Scotch at all. Still, in March, the association filed a lawsuit in BC demanding Graham McAloney change the name. It objects to the use of Caledonian, which it says is synonymous with Scotland, and even McAloney's surname.
I'm not going to give up my family name. That's just absolute nonsense.
It all came as a surprise because McAloney consulted the association as he developed the whiskey.
We fully complied by having Made in Canada with the address on the back. But they pointed out that they'd prefer to see it on the front.
He even added a map of Vancouver Island. The association says it's just trying to protect the reputation of Scotch whiskey, To win in court, it will need to prove BC consumers think Caledonian refers only to Scotland and not to a historic name for BC.
It's an interesting case because it almost pegs, a bit the old world with the new world and the interrelationships between, people that come to this country as immigrants.
The lawsuit has soured this whiskey enthusiast on Scotland's single malts.
They've got so much money and so much power. I don't think that it's right that they're forcing a small Canadian enterprise like this to jump through hoops.
It may seem like McAloney is a David to the industry's Goliath in this trademark fight, but he believes he's not alone.
In the last 10 years, there's only been 16 new distilleries in Scotland. North America, 2,000. And all these Irish and Scottish diaspora will call their distilleries what they want.
Battling it out one bottle at a time. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Victoria.
Battle for sure. I don't know how he's going to win that one.
We just have to have a taste test and see.
I've been there.
Have you?
Yeah, pretty good.
Ah,
pretty good.
Good to know. Good to know.
All right, that's it for our show tonight. You can always find our news program online, cbc.ca/BC. And
sorry, our next local news is right here at 11 after the National. Good night.